What's up, everybody? I'm Jonathan the Baptist, and today we're going to review part 2 of Buckgate, the videos that Tom and Jenifer Buck have released, telling their side of the story. My hope in covering this is not to accuse anybody. I don't know most of the people involved. In fact, Dr. Aiken's the only one that I think I've ever met of all these people. So I don't have any more information than you do, unless you actually know something. But I've seen the Buckgate story on Twitter for like a year now. I don't know all the ins and outs. I've only seen what people have said on Twitter. So, that's as far as my information has gone. Today they're gonna get into the more of the area that I am familiar with, and I'm kind of disheartened, with some of the Southeastern stuff that went on. I don't know that I don't know too much about all in depth, so I'm curious to see what they have to say. I have not seen this video yet, so just trying to be careful. So let's check out this next video, and if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Give us a like if you're enjoying this. Let me know what you think in the comments after you've seen this. I'm not trying to get people to choose sides, but let me know what you think about the evidence they're showing in this. I'm curious to hear what you think. So let's hop over here. I'm back on the right side again. I might move it across the screen again. So this is Tom Buck. He's a pastor, and this is the second video that they've released in this topic. So let's jump right into it.
Why would you not go to the author and say someone's trying to publish your story and without your permission?
I mean, that is a fair question, and probably maybe it was the right thing to do. And my honest answer, I'm just giving you my honest answer. My honest answer is that I think you are abusive and a bully, Tom, and I'm literally afraid of you, and I don't want really anything to do with you. I'm having this meeting because I believe it's the right thing to do, and because I trust Dr. Aiken and I trust Rachel. But I really, really don't want anything to do with you because I'm afraid of you.
Okay. Well, there you go.
It's a weird thing to say. I find it weird, especially for people who used to know each other.
It's 2022. The Southern Baptist Convention was about to have another round of elections for the SBC presidency. Political lines were drawn, and many were looking with great eagerness at the potential candidates. One of the presidential candidates that was nominated was Willie Rice. Willie Rice is the senior pastor of Calvary Church in Florida. He has pastored the church for over 27 years. It was during this heated political climate, Pastor Tom saw a video of Willie Rice introducing one of his deacons at his church. Tom knew personally who this deacon was when he served as a pastor in Florida many years ago, because he had personally counseled this deacon when he had committed a predatory act in December of 2005. As a mentor and friend, Tom led the man, a teacher, to report to his school that he was engaged in a sexual relationship with one of his students. Tom went with him to make this report. This man was a professing and devout Christian, and his willingness to go with Tom to the school to confess his sins appeared to be the fruit of repentance. In addition, he agreed with Tom's counsel that he should be forthright about what had happened with any church he attended or joined from that day forward. But now this person holds the office of a deacon, and this greatly concerned Tom because this is in direct conflict with the SBC resolution of 2021, which disqualified any person that committed sexual abuse from holding a position of leadership in the church. This prompted Tom to seek special counsel from Rachel Denhollinger, who was serving as an advisor for the SBC regarding its policies and practices for responding to issues of sexual abuse.
So, just kind of ironic. This is completely separate to this whole video. It's interesting that we have such a strong statement on someone who's like former abuse and like their ability to serve as a deacon, but we don't have the same strong rules apparently for female pastors in the SBC. Like, I don't know that there's any scriptural evidence that says someone who formerly was in sin can't serve as a deacon now, but we do have scriptural evidence that women can't be pastors. Something to think about. All right, let's keep going.
Tom approached Rachel because he wanted to know how to handle this situation that would not be seen as political but principled. And from the conversation, he believed that he had a biblical responsibility to go privately to Willie with this information. So thus, on March 25th, 2022, Tom texted Willie Rice. Willie, I am not sure if you saw my previous message, but it is of great importance that you and I speak as soon as possible. It involves one of your deacons who would be classified as a sexual predator. To which Willie Rice agreed to connect the next day, but was unsure of the situation he was talking about, which prompted a greater concern and need for Pastor Tom to inform Willie about the deacon. On March 26, 2022, Tom and two of his elders met with Pastor Willie and one of his staff on a video call to discuss the situation. The conversation was long, but Willie Rice patiently listened to Pastor Tom's advice and would eventually agree with Tom and remove the deacon from his position. The overall call, while difficult, was very cordial. In fact, Willie Rice would later recall a year later in a blog on January 31st, 2023, on how Pastor Tom approached him with this information. Tom came to me in private. He did not ambush me. He did not threaten me. He did not attempt to blackmail me. Willie was incredibly thankful for how Tom handled the situation. In fact, Willie over the course of time would be able to reconcile with Tom Buck after the whole debacle that occurred at Southeastern.
All right, before we go on, this is what I want to see in my SBC leadership. Two guys, they have different opinions about the SBC, about maybe church life in general. But we're both Christians. Like, we can respect each other and love each other as brothers in Christ. Like, and look, hey, I see a problem. Let's talk about it. And we look out for each other. Like, why can't we just look out for each other, anymore? Like, why is there such hostility in the SBC? Like, there are certain things that we need to figure out. But, like, just because I disagree with you on something doesn't mean that I hate you. Like, there are certain things that you've crossed the line as far as, like, heresy goes. But, most of the people in the SBC aren't heretics. Like, and there might be circumstances where maybe we just shouldn't have a convention together. And it's not that I don't love you. It's just that, like, we have different fundamental ideas. But I love my Presbyterian brothers. I love my Catholic brothers. I love my Lutheran brothers, Anglican. There's all sorts of different denominations. Like, I don't want to be in a church with them because we just disagree fundamentally on what the church is. But I still love them, I look forward to spending eternity with them, One of my good buddies is a Catholic, and me and him talk about faith and Christian and Christ and grace, and I love the man, He's a great dude. He's always challenging me as well. It's like, I wouldn't go to his church, because he might sprinkle me or, might try to get me to do the rosary or something. But, there's things that I feel like we could just, agree to disagree on. Maybe we don't fellowship in the same way we do with other brothers and sisters in Christ. But, this is heartwarming. This part of the story, I feel like, is encouraging that this is probably the normal atmosphere of the SBC, where you have two brothers, they disagree on other things, but we can come together and work together and help each other out in the day-to-day. Like, this is a good story. Like, let the SBC go be more like this. I feel like more people would love the SBC.
further reflects in the same blog, I believe we now have the kind of relationship where we would speak privately, listen carefully, and dialogue respectfully. Tom Buck and I have no aught in our hearts toward one another. And this feeling was also reflected after Tom met Willie in the 2022 meeting. Willie Rice stated in an email later that day on March 26, 2022, "You're right. These are hard conversations, but you did a stand-up thing by coming directly to us to address this. I respect that. Thank you again for the conversation."
All right, maybe this is another point that's completely irrelevant to this, but and I'm preaching to myself here. Maybe we need to calm down on Twitter. We all say stupid stuff on Twitter, and maybe we should be a little more personal about like our criticism. Now, usually I see Twitter as like the realm of ideas, and so like I don't really care what someone says to me. Like, let's debate the ideas. That's my hope, is to let's just have a good debate. Whatever, like the logical process there, I don't really take it personally. It's just Twitter. But a lot of people aren't like that. Like, I left Facebook a long time ago because a lot of my friends and family don't think of the internet in the same way. Like, that for them, an attack on what they believe on Facebook is a personal attack. And I'm just like, dude, I'm just arguing with you. I love arguing. I love debating the ideas so that we can all get further to the truth. I'm not trying to attack you personally. I'm just attacking your ideas so that we can find out what is true and what is not. So I have to remind myself, not everybody thinks of the internet in the same way. And so perhaps there's a lesson, for me and others, that we need to be a little more guarded about what we say online. Actually, I take the path that, in general, I don't delete things online. I actually had a brother who, I said some things on his Facebook, and he asked me to delete it. Not because he doesn't think that what I said was necessarily wrong. He just didn't feel like he wanted that on his page for others to see. And so, but I told him, I was like, dude, I can't, because if I do it here, I'm going to be tempted to delete things, and I need the what's the word I'm looking for? I need to guard myself, to know that if I put something on the internet, it's going to stay there. I'm not just going to delete all of my tweets. I'm not going to just delete the post because I said something stupid. I'm going to actually force myself to hold myself accountable. And so I don't delete things, because I want to remind myself that, I'm going to say stupid stuff. And if I'm going to be just unwieldy and just throw my sword around on the internet, I need to be a lot more careful about what I say, because I don't want to offend people. I want to make sure that when I post something, I'm actually thinking about the repercussions of it. And so that helps me. It doesn't mean that I don't say stupid stuff, even still, things that I don't, that I regret saying. But, I feel like we probably need to calm down on the internet, have fun, enjoy the debate, but some people do take it personally, and I know that I need to remember that what is said online is often taken a lot more personal than the way that I take things online. Like, me and my buddy, we have like lots of debates all the time about pretty much every issue ever, and I'm just like, dude, like, I love it. I disagree. I call you an idiot, but we're buddies. It's whatever. I don't actually think you're an idiot. I'm just, I'm joking around. We're having a good time. We're finding what is truth. But I walk away, and I'm going to treat them like a brother in Christ. I don't see them any less because they disagree with me on something. So, just thoughts. Has nothing to do with this, but I do wish we had more of this in our discussions in the SBC. So yeah.
But Willie Rice was a presidential candidate for the SBC, and he needed to seek special counsel on his next course of action. After the call's conclusion with Tom and his elders, Willie informed them that he would seek advice from his church leaders, as well as some people in the SBC convention.
I will take it. I'm going to talk to my leaders about it. I'll talk to some people that I value in convention leadership about it, and figure out what to do from there.
In other words, he was going to contact his friends in the politics of SBC to help him navigate the unstable political waters.
It is a fact that Willie contacted SBC leaders he trusted immediately after that phone call.
And Willie Rice informed Tom Buck later in 2023 that the only people he contacted immediately after the meeting were Josh Wester and Keith
I'm gonna move
Whitfield.
myself over because they're putting all the
I
dates
talked to Willie
that
on
side.
Saturday, the 26th. I didn't talk to him about you at all, except the fact that he did fill in the gaps of the conversation you guys had. And the conversation we had was this: Willie, what's the right thing to do by this family, and what's the right thing to do by your church? And that's the conversation we had.
Keith Whitfield is one of Willie Rice's friends who encouraged him to run for the SBC presidency. And Keith Whitfield is also dangerously involved with SBC politics, so much so that even Danny Aiken notes this in a recorded phone conversation on May 2nd, 2022.
Because I've had a conversation with Keith, and I've said, listen to me, your activity in SBC politics is not helping the school, and you need to cut it out, and you need to cut it out right now.
And what Keith did next was very odd. According to Willie Rice, after his phone conversation with Keith, Keith then personally contacted the deacon and his wife. Why is Keith, the provost for Southeastern, personally inserting himself in this situation? This is one of the many questionable actions Keith will do throughout the story. But only Josh Wester and Keith Whitfield in SBC leadership knew about the meeting with Willie Rice and Tom Buck. And this was the ignition to set off the wildfire.
So I think I mentioned in part one that Keith Whitfield is, I think, no longer provost, whatever that means. I don't know. I'm not good with all those like technical position title things. Like, I don't think he's in that position anymore. I think he's still at Southeastern. If I may be wrong, I don't really keep up with what Southeastern is doing, these days. Excuse me, but he, as far as I know, from my understanding, he's no longer he's no longer the provost, whatever that means. It's probably an acronym for something.
On March 27th, less than 32 hours after the meeting, David Baumgartner, an editor of Baptist News Global, received an anonymous email which contained Jenifer Buck's article. Below is an article that was written and circulated by Jenifer Buck. It seems Miss Buck was intending to deliver a rebuke to cancel culture, or Me Too, or something, but actually exposed her husband as an abuser. This is a man who abused his wife. He may have thoroughly repented, but reading this paints his commentary on abuse in the church in a very different light. An SBC friend suggested I send this to you along with these thoughts. I'm sending this anonymously because I know Pastor Buck, and I've seen up close the way he will bully, attack, and intimidate people he sees as enemies. The short timing between Jenifer's article sent to B&G and the meeting with Willie Rice and Tom Buck is not a coincidence. Someone wanted Willie Rice to continue in the SBC race and saw Tom Buck as a political threat.
So looks like I was correct. I mentioned this in the last part that this is what I was referring to. I'm terrible with names. I'm just not good at them, or good at remembering them. But this is what I was talking about in the first part. So I was correct about that, the tie to that. So I'm glad that I'm not completely, out of it.
There was one problem. David Baumgartner couldn't verify whether the draft was authentic.
and it was completely unsolicited. It just showed up. And then so I read it. I didn't know whether or not it was authentic or not.
And the reason why was because the Bucks' names were not in the article.
It is a fact that B&G said that they couldn't verify the rough draft to know it was actually written by Jenifer. This is because the rough draft Jenifer had written did not have my or Jenifer's name in it or on it.
In God's amazing providence, when Jenifer originally wrote the article, she did not include her or her husband's name, so B&G could not verify its authenticity and needed someone to confirm that the draft was authentic. Otherwise, the draft would have been easily published and we would have never have the information we know now. But someone needed to verify Jenifer's rough draft, and somehow they knew the only person that could verify the document was Karen Pryor, and the only person they contacted to do the job was Keith Whitfield. On March 30th, according to Danny Aiken, an anonymous source contacted Keith Whitfield and asked if he could contact Karen to authenticate the rough draft.
Let me read you the best of my memory of what I think the text said from the best of my memory. It said, would you ask Karen if she would review an article supposedly written by Jenifer Buck about her marriage to confirm the authorship? I think she may know something about it.
And according to Karen's account, this anonymous source was a publisher.
Keith said that it was somebody had the draft and they wanted me to verify it, and it was a publication, a news outlet or publication or something, and would I verify it?
After receiving the anonymous text message, Keith then calls Karen to authenticate the rough draft. What transpired in the phone conversation is unknown, but whatever it was, it prompted Karen the next day, March 31st, to reach out to Rachel Denhollinger. And according to a text message that was sent to Tom Buck by Rachel on April 1st, Karen was seeking advice on what to do with the matter. She reached out to me because someone contacted her third hand, asking her to verify that she gotten that draft from you. She had no idea about anything with Willie and thought it was odd that it came back up. I confirmed that it was absolutely wrong to publish that and that I suspected wrong motivations. After receiving counsel from Rachel, Keith claims he suddenly remembers to call back Karen.
I didn't think about it much all day on the next day, on Thursday. I was at my son's play at the high school that night and remembered that I told Karen I was going to call her back.
Keith then calls back Karen, to which Karen Pryor refuses to authenticate the rough draft.
What I was asked was if I would verify the draft that I had received. Like, is this draft the same as that? Is this draft that whoever has that I did not see the same as the draft that I got? And I said, no, I'm not doing that.
I called her back during intermission. She said, she gave me two reasons. She gave me a general reason and a specific reason. And I said, Karen, I think you're right. That makes sense to me.
Keith then claims that he went back to the anonymous source and refused to provide any more information on the draft.
I texted back, no, it's not right to publish a essay without the author's permission. I didn't give the specific reason. The specific reason Karen gave was because you don't tell a survivor's story.
But what becomes questionable is afterwards, Keith deletes the text message and the phone number because, according to Danny Aiken, Keith claims he doesn't want any additional involvement with what's going on.
They knew his cell phone number. And so I said, well, I want to see the text message and the phone number. He said, I deleted it. And I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, because I didn't want to have anything to do with this.
Why did Keith delete the anonymous text message in the first place? It's already odd that Keith is willing to respond to anonymous text messages, especially when we're dealing with sensitive documents from an abuse survivor. Even though he claims it's morally wrong to authenticate the draft, he still went to Karen to authenticate the draft. And if Keith did nothing wrong in the exchange with the so-called anonymous person, then he should have kept the receipts of the exchange. But now we have to base it on his good word alone. But him deleting the message is suspicious at best, and his further actions later in the story will prove just that.
So, why would you delete the text? Well, like, unless there's something incriminating, I couldn't see why you would delete that. Like, I guess, like, if you don't want any more involvement, maybe, I don't know, like, I generally don't respond to like phone numbers that I don't know. If I get like a weird text from or if I get a text from an unknown number where they're talking to me, I might say, "Who dis?" You know, "Who's this?" I don't know who you are, and you know, whatever they reply, you know, determines what I do. Like, if it's a wrong number or obviously a scam, I'll just delete it, you know, whatever. But if it's a friend, you know, or somebody that I've met, actually, there's a couple of people that I know that I don't have their phone number saved. So every time they text me, I'm like, who is this? Like, I've got a text message history with this person, but I haven't documented it for whatever reason. But you know, if I respond to them, like, I keep their text in case they ever text back. You know, you never know. Like, why would you delete it? Like, I guess my default is to just trust. I guess we don't really have any other choice, but to trust that he had the best of intentions. You know, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt. But it is suspicious. I'll at least say that. It's suspicious that you would delete the text. It kind of seems like it might be in like deleting any like incrimination, but guess we'll never know. It's between him and God, you know, as to why. But I suppose for the benefit of the doubt, I'll just, you know, accept his word for it. You know, I'd like to think that he wouldn't lie to Dr. Aiken. You know, again, we'll get into that later. All right, here we go.
Danny Aiken claims they had tried to recover the deleted text message.
I've tried, and I've been told that it can't happen, but I'll ask him if he would take steps to see if that number and message can it all be recovered.
But if the timeline of events is correct, it was possible to easily obtain the phone number because, according to Danny Aiken, Keith's service provider is Verizon, and the information can be downloaded.
I've asked him, per your request earlier and even again, to go back and see if there's any possible way to retrieve it. He even contacted Verizon, but he says there's no phone number on my log that would match up with that. Of course, they don't keep messages, I don't think. But
yeah, they do. That's why I sent you that. They do.
You can log into my Verizon account and download the list of phone numbers that texted you in the past 90 days. Beyond 90 days, you'll need to contact the service provider directly. But as of this recording, Southeastern has failed to look further into the matter and easily provide the anonymous phone number. And another thing, how could Karen and Keith have known it was a publisher from an anonymous text message?
And it was a publication, a news outlet or publication or something, and would I verify it?
How did they obtain that information from an alleged anonymous text message? We don't know. But assuming that's true, in what circumstance would a reporter approach someone anonymously? After consulting with some professional media reporters, which will remain unnamed by request, all the reporters that were consulted agreed that it is unprofessional, unethical, and unusual for a reporter to not introduce themselves by name and media outlet, which raises even more questions of Keith's actions. Why wasn't he suspicious of the anonymous text message? Why didn't he ask basic questions on who he was conversing with? Why bothering responding at all? And it was already odd Keith and Karen took 24 hours just to figure out it was morally wrong to authenticate an abuse survivor's story.
So, those are some good questions. I did think it was weird that it was just an anonymous text, but I guess if you just don't have their number saved, I would assume it's an anonymous text. So I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But I didn't even think about, like, this being a journalist or a reporter. Like, so, of course, they're going to introduce themselves. I didn't even think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's kind of weird. Kind of weird, you know? It is weird, like, so Keith said that It's obviously unethical to share a abuse survivor story, and yet he was willing to ask Karen Pryor about whether or not it was the same document. So, like, so it seems like her response, which I'm going to assume it's true. What they've said is true. Is a good response. Like, yeah, you shouldn't confirm that. Although, we'd still have to ask how they even got the document to begin with. Which there's only two options. Well, other than Jenifer Buck sending it to them herself. But she claims she didn't, and so there were only two others, one of which has claimed they didn't, and then Karen, the other person, has said, I don't remember doing that. I don't think so. But in another statement, she also said, on their request, I sent it to different publications. So it seems like Karen did send it out, even if that's technically separate from actually like trying to get this published. Sending out is a different matter than confirming a release document. So she's right, at least, to not get involved in helping them release the document. But how did they get the document to begin with? That is interesting. So, yeah.
And to say no to an alleged anonymous text message. And finally, why didn't Keith or Karen report to Tom and Jenifer Buck that their draft was stolen? These are sensitive documents from an abuse survivor, especially Karen Pryor, who had the original draft. When Karen was asked directly why she didn't inform Jenifer that the draft was stolen, she gave a very straightforward response.
Why would you not go to the author and say, someone's trying to publish your story and without your permission?
I mean, that is a fair question, and probably maybe it was the right thing to do. And my honest answer, I'm just giving you my honest answer. My honest answer is that I think you are abusive and a bully, Tom, and I'm literally afraid of you, and I don't want really anything to do with you. I'm having this meeting because I believe it's the right thing to do, and because I trust Dr. Aiken and I trust Rachel, but I really, really don't want anything to do with you because I'm afraid of you.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Karen Pryor still had resentment against Tom for what he did.
So I can kind of understand that. Like, if you're really scared of somebody, like, it's really difficult to talk to them about anything. So I can kind of understand that. Why she didn't talk to Jenifer, I don't know. Is her fear justified? You know, I don't know. Like, I mean, he does, like, say hard truths on Twitter, but is that enough to really, like, be afraid of somebody? But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know him personally, and I think she does. So, you know, I'll leave that up to the YouTube or the Twitterverse, you know. But it doesn't, like, I can understand the idea of being afraid of somebody, and so therefore not wanting to talk to them about anything. I understand that. So is she really afraid of him? Probably to some extent, which is why she looks so nervous in this interview. But it is like a grilling her on all the things that she did wrong, so allegedly, and trying to figure out if she actually did any of those things wrong. So, you know, it could just be that she's nervous in that interview to begin with. So I don't know. You know, I guess we'll just take her at her word, because we don't really have a choice. I haven't seen evidence to the contrary, so, you know, take it for what it is. But whether that fear is justified is a whole nother discussion. So let's keep going. It's almost over.
and refused to inform Tom or Jenifer
I like to
Buck
think the best of people.
fire that was brewing at Southeastern.
Especially claiming
Within the
Christians.
next day, April 1st, 2022, the draft began to circulate in the dark forces of the SBC, and the Bucks were
dark
unprepared
forces
for
of
the
the
inferno that was ignited.
I was outside getting ready for a garage sale the next day. Tom came out, asked me if I remembered writing an article about the early years of our marriage, the point of it highlighting its difficulties. That didn't bring anything to recall, as I hadn't written anything with that focus before, and asked me to read an article that had been forwarded to him to see if it was familiar. The first few lines I didn't catch it, but as we continued to read, we realized that it was a rough draft that I had written 4 years earlier about the struggles in our marriage and its restoration, and it was one that I had sent to Karen prior to give me feedback on how to communicate my thoughts more clearly. The entire point of the article that I had written was to give God glory for His work. It was to encourage others, and it was to give people hope that God could do it for their marriage too. And whoever was doing this was ignoring that. They were weaponizing my words to use against Tom. Tom began to explain what it was they were going to do. The story had been leaked. Somebody was going to drop the story as a hit piece against him. I began to feel like I was hearing through a tunnel as these things were beginning to make sense in my mind as to what was really happening. I just fell apart. I started to cry. I felt exposed. I felt manipulated.
I'm not laughing at the story. Whoever did the animation is not doing you any favors. It is a little weird looking. I'm sorry. This is a serious subject, but the animation is kind of odd. Like, it doesn't really look like them at all.
And my own story, my life story, was being stripped from me. It was like I was completely locked out of what the truth was. I was absolutely devastated.
All right. So that's the end. Yeah, so I feel like I think what she says is interesting there. Like the I don't know if they released the entire unedited rough draft. It seems like she's implying that they took out the God's restoration and glory out of it and left all the gritty details in there. So if that's true, that's kind of disgusting that they would do that. You know, God changes all of our hearts. Like, none of us are righteous. All of us have sinned. You know, we're all really terribly evil to the core, and yet God in His grace and mercy has saved us, and He's loved us despite who we are. And so we're all fallen creatures. We've all done horrible, terrible things that we regret and wish we had never done. And you know, there but for the grace of God go us. So it's like, you know, I really hate that. You know, but the situation is just awful. You know, it's really, really terrible. I don't know, you know, exactly what happened. I don't know if we ever will. But my heart goes out to the Bucks. I hope all this gets resolved. It's got to be a pretty terrible situation to be in. You know, I mean, politics is already like tough enough, and even like Twitter, you know, can be pretty disheartening sometimes. But you know, it's you know, God is good, and I hope all this gets resolved. You know, I wish we would just like release everything that people know, and like I wish we just have some transparency in this. You know, that would be great. That'd be really good. All this transparency everybody's trying to say we should get, I'm like, yeah, we should have more transparency in the SBC. So let me know what you think. I do feel vindicated talking about the Willie Rice stuff. I don't think I said his name in the last, but that's who I was talking about in the first video when I was talking about the setup, that the document seemed to be released because of his conversation with Willie Rice. So I'm glad that I've been affirmed that what I had thought I knew was true. So, well, I mean, was it released because of that? That's another question, but it just happened to be released after the conversation. So anyways, Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I don't know if I've already said this, but give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.